Welcome back to the We Attitude podcast. I'm sitting here with one of my best friends, David Nations. One of the coolest thing about Dave is we met 15, 16 years ago at a Breadco.
Yeah.
In fact, the Breadco doesn't even exist anymore.
It's across the street now. They moved it. Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
It's still, it's not in that building, but
Fair
yeah.
enough. Yeah. And one of the coolest thing that Dave said at the time, he was at the beginning of his real estate journey, probably doing what, like 3-4 million a year?
$3 million was the most I'd ever done. So,
Okay. And
9 deals, 10 deals. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was an independent. And I said, so I gave him like the spiel and all this stuff. He said, well, who's to say I'm not the next Gary Keller? And I said, good point. I said, might as well just come in and learn from the guy, and then you can go be him.
Probably helps that I didn't know who Gary Keller was. I don't know that I would say that statement, but yeah, I don't know if it makes me sound amazing or really stupid.
I think it makes you, well, knowing your journey, I think it makes you sound amazing because, I mean, you think about where you started and where we are now, and it's been, I mean, in my book, you have one of the coolest journeys just because the length of it, like where your starting point was, and obviously we're not finished, but where we are today, I think is pretty fabulous. So before we get into the nitty gritty of it, like why'd you get into real estate?
It was kind of an accident. I was working in healthcare, and my dad had a nurse staffing company. We were staffing nurses in hospitals, and I was helping with the marketing. And a buddy of mine called me up and said, hey, we should buy a house and rehab it. This was in 2004. And I was 1 year out of college and didn't know anything about anything. And I was like, okay, sounds good. What do we do now? And so we met with a bunch of people, bought a house. Funny enough, actually right behind that Breadco. Actually, now that I just thought about that, a little single family house, and bought it, rehabbed it. Took us about 6 months, sold it, made a couple grand. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I'm like, that I got my money back and made some money. And hadn't really made any yet since I was, just out of college, and kind of opened up my eyes to real estate, and, slowly kind of started moving in that direction. Bought another house in 2006, which I still own to this day. Actually, it's right down the street from here. It turned out to be a really good rental. That wasn't the plan. But anyways, so yeah, I kind of stumbled into it from a phone call with a buddy.
So were you licensed at the time when you rehabbed?
Neither one of us were. A good friend of my sister's had her license, and she actually sold my wife her house. And so she helped us buy that house. And then we found a flat fee company. This was before I was a realtor. So, and I paid somebody $500. They put it on the MLS, and my business partner, my buddy CG, was in law school. So he's a pretty sharp guy. Yeah. And so he knew contracts and all that stuff. We just needed the MLS, right? Yeah. As an agent, we've all heard that. And we listed it with them, and we were at a Cardinal game together one day, got a phone call from an agent. They wrote us an offer. We got it under contract, and we had a really fun night. So sold our first house. Yeah. And I didn't know anything. Both of our dads would come over and fix all the stuff that we were doing and made it right. And so that was kind of my first step into real estate, and thought it was kind of neat. And I got my license in 2007. And as I've shared my story with people over the years, my timing on everything was always off, but I didn't know it because I'd never been in it. But, getting licensed in 2007 when the market was shifting pretty hard through the recession. And I went back to school and got a master's in urban planning and real estate development in 2007 as well, and graduated in 2009 thinking I could work for like a big developer that would go in and buy like the old buildings in downtown St. Louis and redevelop them. And in 2009, that didn't exist either. Yeah. Those guys were underwater, gone. Like everything was totally different, right? And
very different.
Yeah. And so I just said, I was going to keep selling real estate. Yeah. And here we are.
Yeah. So I started in 2005, and this is we had flip phones back then.
Yeah.
And we used to in 2009. I moved here in St. Louis in 2008, so 2009 was kind of and I would flip the phone to see if it was on because it wasn't anymore. So
because no one was calling.
I think my phone's off. So get licensed. You run as an independent for a period of time that you and I met. I think it was 2009, right? Or 10?
So we met in 2010. So Rick Wiedenhoff, who's my
that's right.
My sponsor. Shout out to Rick. He's down in Florida now, but he showed up to an open house funny, we were talking about open houses.
Yeah.
He walked in my open house in 2010, and again, based on that market, it was him and I for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And he walked in, and we just chatted.
Yeah.
He was my only customer, although he wasn't really one.
And he wasn't buying.
No, and he lived in the neighborhood, and he had never heard of me, rightfully so, and was just wanting to know who I was, and then invited me to Mega Camp.
Yeah.
And so
That's right.
was a guest of Mega Camp, and that's when we hit off the bromance.
We crushed Mega Camp that year.
Yes, we did.
We needed a vacation.
We had a good, yes, we did. Yeah, that was fun though. We had a good time.
Great time.
Yeah, so that was what kind of opened my eyes up to a whole world of real estate that I had no idea.
Yeah.
Just the amount of training and education that was out there.
Yeah.
I came back with a massive notepad of notes from all of the people that were speaking on the panel. And then I went to Bold. You guys invited me to that. And so then we, started talking and,
That was one of the first, I think it was at the Brentwood rink, wasn't it?
It was, that's right. At the Brentwood rink. That's right. Yeah. And that was interesting. I'm like, what is this?
What is happening?
Yeah. It was, in hindsight, it was great.
Yeah.
But again, like being so new and all that, like everything was just very weird and different. But we'd started meeting and, that was in August, and then May of 2011 is when I joined KW. And
remember that. I think if I recall, you said yes at Bar Louie before going to a cards game.
Is that? Yeah, I think you're right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So we you and I met at all the bars along.
We did. A lot of beers.
We've accomplished a lot there.
Yeah, we're productive there, apparently.
Right. So, all right. So then you come in 10. We get started. You were a single agent essentially for at the time, right? So,
yep.
But your intention, your goal was always, you were very clear on building a team. So
yeah,
how did that come about, and why did you do that? Why was that important to you?
Yeah. Well, when I sat in the room at Mega Camp in August of 2010, listening to all these guys on the panels and how they had these massive businesses and they were these teams, and I had no idea what that was. Or I grew up. My dad was an entrepreneur, so I wanted to run a business. And as I said, I sort of stumbled into real estate. And I think that was when I connected that you could build a business and be in real estate. And so I was like, all right, well, let me learn how to do that. So when I joined up at KW, I just started calling my team the Nations Group, STL. And even though it was just me, with the intent that it would turn into a group of people. And then just started coaching with you and learning from every other agent that was in her office, Angela, Rick, whoever else would talk to me and tell me what I needed to know. I can remember walking around the offices and just poking my head in and saying, hey, Angela, what's happening? How's it going? What are you doing? How's this work? What do you, and she handed me a binder that was her listing presentation and was like, you don't have a listing presentation? I'm like, I don't know what that is. And I was like, I just walk in with comps and a contract and then say, here's what it should sell for. Here's the contract. Yeah. I don't know.
Signed right here.
And it worked. And we used to get paid at the listing table. When I was on my own, it was $500 up front, and they would write me a check, and I would walk out of there at least getting paid $500. Yeah. And I did a discounted listing, all kinds of stuff. But then I came to KW and learned a different way. Yeah. And
well, I feel like one of the things, because to your point, I think you were approaching negotiations from part of your value before Keller Williams was to discount yourself, because that was what differentiating you from the
well, realizing the way the market was, right? And people were underwater and short sales, and people, it was totally opposite of now, right? Sellers are bringing a $50,000, $100,000 check as opposed to buyers coming and paying.
Like 401k.
Right? I can remember a deal that I had, and the guy was like, just bring me an offer. And we were listed at like 800, and I got an offer for 600. He was like, great. We sold it for 650. And they took it on the chin, but they didn't care, and so my whole shtick was, if we could save you money. And so the money that was being saved was what I was discounting, but that was my marketing tool. Right. And that's how I got in the door. Again, didn't have training experience. It was just the confidence to go out and figure this out. And that's what we did. But then, coming to KW, realizing like there's a totally different model that provided structure, systems, training, and then actually going out and fully marketing your house and all the additional benefits and services as a full-on realtor that I really wasn't providing, but didn't realize that, right? And so,
which allowed you to then enhance your value.
Correct. And then,
operating differently.
Get paid differently.
Yeah. To the extent that you negotiated things all the way up to 8% at one point.
At one point, so we created this really cool tiered structure. I always think that was funny because you and I and Angela had a conversation around what She was typically getting a 6 to 7%, somewhere there. I know they're always negotiable, so I don't want to say that was,
Sure.
And so I went out and was able to negotiate 8%, and it was awesome. And every time we did that, we sold the house in the first week. And that was in like 2013 for about a year or so in there that we did that, and it worked great. And all it was an incentive to be able to move the house faster, and it worked. I mean, it was proven. So, So
let's go back. Like from a team perspective, there was a few, how would I call it? Speed bumps, I guess, at the beginning, right? So how'd you, did you like that?
Sure. Yeah. There's always speed bumps. Yeah.
Yeah. But, so walk me through this, right? Like because obviously I was there when you found your MVP, like Catherine. But there's steps before that, there's experiences before that, and how did you go through that, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I had somebody that was working with me as a buyer's agent, assistant kind of thing before I came over, and she kind of came with me to KW. That didn't last very long. Brought in another person that was kind of the same scenario, and I remember meeting with you and talking about you need to hire somebody, and I didn't feel like I had enough business, but the model was you need to hire an admin. You need to hire an admin, bring in the admin, don't bring in another agent. And so, so we ended up hiring Catherine, and he helped me through that. And Catherine is still working with me. We just had 13-year anniversary in July. Nice. Working together. And so that was really the first step. But there was a first, and I feel like as agents and being in this business for a while, you see that everybody does it, right? And everyone's like, no, I'm going to bring in this person and we're going to do more business. And you realize the importance is you really need to set up the back end, the foundation, the systems. But you think you just need to get more business, and all that does is make it more chaotic. So then again, I can remember sitting in your office talking about that and working through that, and then learning the whole hiring process. And the funny story about that is when I brought in Catherine, she was referred to me by a mutual friend of ours, of Catherine and I's, and talked to her for one time. And then she called me and was like, well, this massive company here in St. Louis has offered me a job. What are you doing?
With benefits.
Everything. And I'm like, they're a legitimate business. I know them. It's actually down the street from where I grew up. I'm like, they offered you a job already? I'm like, Well, I was supposed to take you through this whole hiring process. That's what David told me. I'm like, all right, I'll get back to you. And then I thought about it for a few minutes, and I just called her back and was like, yeah, you're hired. If they want to hire you, I'm
yes.
Let's just do this. Yeah. So then she took the weekend and then called me back and was like, all right, let's do it. Yeah. And the first 2 weeks were real rocky. I joke, I've told people, I had 1-page piece of paper that had 6 bullets on it. Yeah. And that was sitting on her desk when she got there. I was like, here's what you need to do. Yeah. And that was her job. She was like, that's it? Yeah. It's like, what do you mean?
Well, you need to build the rest. That's
why you're here. What else we're doing. That's right. I walked in with cargo shorts and a t-shirt, all hot and sweaty from showing houses or something. And she was just like, oh God, what did I do? Yeah. She's like, I could have had this legitimate job, and I took it with this clown. Yeah. And, so she said she had some thoughts for the first couple of weeks, but here we are 13 years later, and it's still going. So
I should have had her here with you for that stretch of the conversation.
Yeah, I'm sure she has other ideas of how that went, but I'm glad it worked out the way it did.
For sure. I mean, she's awesome. And I remember, this is around the time, and I say this to people all the time, create an org chart, right? Create a visual that you get, because I feel like we were kind of partners at the time, and I remember I said we have to create a visual so people, because you're hiring, you were building something and you were hiring to a vision. Now you can hire to a track record, say, hey, here's what we've done, here's the growth, here's how we did it and all this stuff. But at the time, we had to create some sort of a vision for people to see themselves on the team, to say, all right, now I can see where I'm going to sit and how I can impact this whole organization and move forward. And I think this is kind of the time where you build it with her or before her.
I think it was right, because the other thing we did was in August of 2011, went back to Mega Camp, and I remember you walking me in the vendor hall over to Maps Coaching and said, hey, this guy needs a coach. And I'm like, I can't afford a coach. I don't need a coach. You're like, yeah, you do. Here you go. Yeah. And then I met Mitzi Chesnicki, and then ended up coaching with her. And I remember you and her talking about the org chart, and so we started building that out. And the funny thing is, look, I still have all those renditions over the years that we has evolved to, but the original one was the team was having a renovations business with 4 or 5 guys working at property management and owning market centers. all of those have happened. The property management, we manage our own stuff. I don't do outside stuff, but I do have a renovations business. We buy and flip and has 5 full-time people on payroll. We do have the team, and we own a little bit of the market center and had a couple, right? So all of it happened, right? So there's that, I forget the stat, but when you write down your goals and you put that, it's more likely to happen, right? And I think having that and promoting that and sharing that is what brought Catherine in. Like you said, it's what I know brought in Rachel. She has told me that before. And then Lisa and everybody else along the way were like, well, this is really cool. I want to get that seat, or I want to do this. And that's right. It was really, really helpful to have that.
I remember, I think the way I remember it anyway, I think it's part of what strengthened Catherine's decision to come in and maybe look over the cargo shorts. And
it was, because it was like we were going to build something, and there's a real opportunity. It's not like I'm doing just this role here and that's it. Like we could build up something much bigger than just have this job, right? And that's 100% right. You're right. That is exactly what brought her in.
Yeah. So, all right. So fast forward, I think you, was it in 16 that you replaced me?
Yep.
As team leader, right?
October of 2016.
That wasn't part of the org chart. Right?
Nope.
That was a bit of a curveball.
No, but what it did do with the org chart was, my goal was to build the team to get out of production. Right. And I wasn't ready in my mind at that time to do it. And I'd probably still be saying the same thing had I not become the team leader. But then becoming the team leader, I essentially had to replace myself. Now, going into it, I felt like I was still going to be able to do what I was doing, just on a smaller level. But once I got into the role, I probably spent about 10% of my time on the team and 90% of the time with the market center. So it changed a lot more than I anticipated, but it forced me out, and it got me a goal, which was to not be in production on the team and be able to have the team continue to grow, which it did. And we went from 29 million to I think 43 or 44 million during that time frame. So it still kept growing. Yeah.
So, and then at the time, there was a key hire on your part too, right? Like this is when...
So we brought in Jim Waymeyer. Yep. And I know you helped put that relationship together. And Jim was solo and was doing about 10 million, 11 million on his own. And Catherine and I and him all got together and kind of same thing, put together a plan, mapped it out. What is this going to look like? Where are we going to go? What's the benefits here? And Jim joined us, and he's still with us now as well. And he's our director of sales and oversees the sales team. And he's also built out a flipping business and owns, I think, 35 or 40 rental properties now as well. And
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
He's done a lot of great things, and it's been awesome to have him on the team and help. And when I stepped out of that role, he essentially jumped in and took that on. So then him and Catherine ran with the team.
Yeah, he's an awesome human being too. Like you had some really, really good people, not just like talented, but you got like legitimately good people on your team. And I remember... well, it's funny. Like that's the cool part. As long as we've kind of been together, for lack of a better way of saying it, but like Jim didn't have any kids.
Catherine didn't.
Catherine wasn't even married, I think.
Maybe she was at that time.
Shortly, right? And then
no, she was, because then her husband moved back here. That's how.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. And then your own, like Will wasn't born.
No, my daughter was born in 2009. Right. And then Will was born in 2014.
So it's been
Well, yeah, because at one point we were joking about having the nation's network daycare, because everyone on my team was having kids. Right. When Pat and Paul and Rachel and Kat and me, it was everyone. It was like one after another. Everyone was like, "Don't drink the water over there."
Selling homes over there. I remember, like, you were actually the first guy that came to me, like, "Hey, like, have you ever thought of, like, how does maternity leave? Like, how does that work?" I'm like, I don't know. You're the first one to ask. Let's figure it out. Yeah. You were the first.
That's gotten a lot the maternity policy.
If anyone has a question, they should go to you. Like you definitely. It was needed for sure on the team.
Yeah.
So all right. So looking back, like what before we kind of like, give me some lessons that have come along the way from a leadership perspective, and you're a very coachable guy, so I know you seek information a lot and all this stuff. So, and I hear all the time agents like, I'm not doing this, or I don't need a coach, or no one's going to do it as good as me, so I don't want leverage, I don't want a team, like, right? Like, I'm sure you've heard those things too. So during your journey, I guess, like, what are some of the things you're looking back, you're like, all right, that was something, that's it's an important part in the story, kind of. It's a pivotal point, or
Sure.
good or bad. Like,
I think, speaking to the coaching portion, there's a lot there in your questions. I think at first, it's a big investment, right? It's $1,000 a month, and I'm brand new into this, and not really, but not doing a lot of business. And the initial thought for everyone is like, I can afford that, and I would argue, looking back, like, well, you can't afford not to, because I think for my personality, like you said, like, I'm pretty coachable. And I think what I really have learned about myself is coming into KW, having coaches, having other people to model after is what helped me build the business. Right. And what helped me move and be able to grow it the way I could. Because without that and not knowing any of that, like, you don't know what you don't know. So you're just sort of doing the same thing over and over, I guess. Right. Yeah. And so having people there to challenge you and push you, make suggestions. And then when you hit roadblocks, people to be able to coach you through it and help you, what's next, all that kind of stuff is what allows you to continue to grow. And I don't think, had I not come to KW, not learned about how to build a team. And I think the models around all of that are what helped us grow the way we did. For me, I feel like I'm actually pretty creative. That's what I love about like buying and rehabbing houses and coming up with all that kind of stuff. At the end of the day though, like building this business, I look back and I'm like, the only reason that I think we were able to do it the way we were is because we are indeed it all ripped off and duplicated, is what we call it. And it's just learning what other people were doing and said, okay, I like that. I can do that. It's listening to an Angela Kidner who's like, well, this is how I do that. Okay, cool. I like that idea. I can implement that, and adding that in and then continuing to layer those things in, and it helps you grow, So I think being open-minded and listening to what other people are doing, how it's working, how they're using it, and then how does it affect you? And because there's so much, right? Yeah. You don't need all of it, but there are things that it's like, oh, okay, I like that. How do I do that? Yeah. And I think the other thing that was fun was sitting in those massive events like Mega Camp and Family Reunion, the people on stage, sometimes you're like, that guy is doing 200 deals or 500 deals. I mean, it looks like he could be a grandpa or whatever,
right.
Not that means anything, right? And I'm 27 years old sitting there like, what am I doing? Right. And to me, that was motivating, and knowing that like, oh, I can do this, and I think those are things and being in those rooms are what really helped me continue to grow. And without them, I'd probably still be sitting in my guest bedroom trying to figure it out.
Well, it's kind of like the 4-minute mile, right? Like once somebody did it, now it's doable, right? So when you're sitting in the room and you hear someone who's done 200 deals and you're at 50, now you know it's doable. Now just the matter is not, it's not to become the first one to do it. It's just a matter of, all right, well, do I want to do it? And if I do, which path am I going to use to get there?
100%. I mean, you're seeing teams now doing, 1,000, 2,000 deals. I'm like, holy cow. When I started, it was like, man, I'd love to do 50. Yeah. And then I was like, how do I break through 100? Yeah. And while you're doing that, other people are blowing the doors off. So yeah, to your point, like they're always pushing the envelope, right? So as long as you're willing to pay attention and want to continue to push the envelope as well, like the ceiling, there isn't a ceiling, right? That's what's fun and challenging about this business at the same time. Because the goalposts, I guess, are always moving, and it's hard. How do you celebrate, right? Like you get there and you're like, okay, great, next. Okay, great, next. Where it's like, man, you want to stop and celebrate, but you don't have time. Yeah. It's a weird.
Amen. Yeah. So I've always said once you get like on the, I'm going to call it the leadership side of things, right? Whether it's our world or really any, you get where you're more in the people business than the real estate business. And I take it like you're in the, I look at you as somebody who's a leader, you're in the people business and real estate's your product, if you will.
Yep.
So from a people aspect of things, from a leadership aspect of things, like what is building a team like yours and achieving the result that you've achieved has taught you about people and leadership?
It's hard, is my first thought.
Say it again.
You get into this, and I mean, you plan the org chart, you have the vision, you think about all that stuff, but I've never done any of it, right? It just looked and sounded really cool and be fun to get after and do, and you get there and you're like, this was neat, but man, it's hard, and you are managing people, you're leading people, and there's all the different personalities and all the different things that happen, and it's just you do the best you can, and I think you lead with integrity, and and do the right thing. And I think for us, I'm a very collaborative type of guy. I love to be able to work with people and figure out like, okay, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? And then from there kind of determine like, all right, here's what I think makes the most sense. And I think that's what's really helped me in building the team. I think that's what's helped retain the core group that I've had for a long time, is that I feel like we've all been in it together. It's called Nations Network, but at the end of the day, it's really all of ours. And I think that pride of ownership and being able to be a part of the team and have a say in it, and know that like Rachel and Catherine and Jim and Lisa, who've been with me for a long time, all have built what we have today, and all have been a part of the decisions and the directions we've moved and all that stuff. And I think that's probably my biggest takeaway in how I've done it. At the same time, that also is a challenge, right? Because sometimes you got to have somebody who's just willing to just say, nope, this is what we're doing. And maybe not the popular decision, but it has to be made, right? Or a decision has to be made. And that's where it gets tough for my personality, and that's, you learn how do you work through that and navigate through it. And I think Keller has the Keller personality assessment, the KPA, there's the DISC, like all of those little things that are out there are also very helpful in learning that and understanding people and how they work. And I think the more you can learn those things, I think the better you can start to understand and relate to, which helps you lead people better, and I think a lot of times in this, we're moving so quick, you make decisions quickly, emotionally, maybe not the right way, and I think when you can kind of take all of those things together, you can make a better decision, better impact. And those are things I've learned over the years. Certainly didn't know that day one, That's right. Yeah. So how
much of your experience through learning how to build the real estate, I'm going to call it the retail side of your business, has impacted how you build Nations Brothers renovation?
I would say it's identical. Okay. We had some contractors that were working for Jeff and I was the admin doing all the back end stuff on the renovation side of the business. And then we brought in our admin, who we were able to then hand off all that, stuff to, and she's taken it and grown it and scaled it from there. And that's been, allowed us to, and the way we've kind of set up the back end systems, the tracking, the policies, all that stuff is very similar to what I was doing with the real estate team. So I think we all just had our Christmas party. I don't know when this will be out, but we just do it together. I feel like the businesses are very similar, and they kind of overlap a little bit, as well. And I think a lot of what I've been able to learn from building the real estate team, I've just been able to take over to the other side. And my brother just helps and runs that whole crew, and working through him on conversations and challenges with people and that kind of stuff, I think is just what I'm getting from my own experiences and being able to share with him.
Yeah, that's awesome. How many, tell me a little bit more about your rehab side of things. Like what do you guys run per year? Is that driven by a goal like your real estate sale? Is that whatever the right deal comes across? Like how do you go about it?
Yeah, we started, Jeff and I started rehabbing in 2010. As I said, my buddy and I started earlier than that, but kind of got put on pause with the financial crisis, and nobody was willing to give any money. So we jumped back in 2010, and we were doing one deal at a time. And our whole goal was to really, and has been still to this day, is to buy rehabs, generate the income that then will allow us to go out and buy and build a rental portfolio. And the goal there is to have one that's large enough that then from that income, in the future, when we decide to retire or slow down from work or what have you, that we can live off of that. And so the whole purpose of the rehabs is to then go out and build that rental portfolio. So for years, we would just take all the cash that we made and put it right back in the business and just kept reinvesting. And we were doing one at a time, and then we would do 2 that year, and then 3, and then 4. Right now, for the last few years, we will do 15 to 20 houses that we'll buy, fix up, flip, and sell. And our projects probably range on average, I'd say about $100,000 remodel, up to 200. We've had a couple that were much larger than that, but we try to stay away from that. But yeah, and we've got a crew. There's 3 full-time contractors that work for us. We've got a full-time admin, Gail, and then we also brought in a leasing and property manager for our rental side that manages all of our stuff as well. And then my brother, and then his wife does all the design on all the houses as well.
Nice.
And so we'll do, like I said, 15 to 20 flips a year. We are at 106 doors on the rental portfolio right now. That's awesome. And once we added in Courtney, who's doing the leasing and property management, and rolled over all the stuff that we had other people managing and brought it all in. then we had a lot more confidence to go out and start buying more. And over the last year, really more than doubled that portfolio. So
is 15 to 20 rehab a year is just it's a comfortable pace that you know how to deal with, and you have the proper crew to manage that? My point is, let's say you want to get to 30. Is it more of a crew problem than a financial challenge?
I think it's actually, it's Jeff and I were actually meeting talking about that the other day, and I think it's a combination of that. Okay. I think we can comfortably do the 15 to 20 right now based on what we have, the way our financing is set up for buying and rehabbing, and then the amount of guys that we have. I think in order for us to get to 30, which is something we've talked about, we're probably going to need at least another guy, and probably need to have additional funds to be able to continue to carry that, because we'll do anywhere from 3, the most we've had at one time is 8 rehabs going, but we're running probably 4 to 5 is pretty normal for us. But once we get to 8, you usually have a couple that are sitting, or not getting as much love right out of the gate. And so it's costing you money. So, if then in that case, then having another guy or two, that way you can kind of have them spread out, probably is what we need to do. But it's just trying to, figure that out and map it out, and how necessary it is. One year, actually, we had a goal of like, okay, we want to do X amount of rehabs. The problem that we discovered for us with doing something like that was we were so focused on the number of units that at the end of the day, you look up and like, we didn't really make much. Like, shoot, we made more last year, and we did less deals, right? So for us, we've learned, like, it's not about how many, right? It was more about what's our average that we can make per deal, and that's what we're focusing on. And as we continue to do that, then we're making sure we're picking the right deals, and we'll pass on a lot of stuff. And we've fallen in this niche where we've kind of become known to do bigger projects, which I like, because most guys around town won't touch them. So we don't have as much competition for them. Nice. There's a couple people, but you're also in sort of an interesting market, right? I mean, you're in that, we're buying them around 3 to 500, and then those sell from 500 to 750, and so that's kind of a move up, move down price point, depending on where you're at in town. And, as the market is shifting, it can become a little slower, so, it's interesting to see how that'll continue to go.
It's a lot more of there's a lot more involved to it than meets the eye, and it's a lot more almost like transactionally driven, right? Like, it's per deal kind of thing. Like, you have to analyze every where the selling part is just is a lot. It's easier to generate volume on the selling part from a unit perspective than it is there, because it's just a matter of getting the right price and matching it.
Yeah, you talk about on the 100%. It's all. I mean, all is the numbers, and what it is. And the challenge now is the market is shifting. People are still wanting a higher price, but things are kind of slowing down, and money is expensive, and so you have some things that you're kind of balancing. Whereas like 2020, 2021, you could sell anything, right? And money was cheap.
So. I was going to say that has to impact your pro forma quite a bit. Like, the cost of money is not what it used to be, so now you got to buy different.
That's hitting you, because you're still selling them for whatever they're worth, right? I don't get to then add in that, well, my interest rate has doubled, so you now have to pay more for it. Like, it doesn't work that way. So and then the cost of everything has gone up. When we started, we were spending 30 to 50 on a house. Then it went from 50 to 70, and then it went from 70 to 90. Now it's like, you can't get out of there without at least $100,000 for us, and how we do them.
And I would assume, like, it's not necessarily driven by like fancier countertops or whatever. Like, I'm assuming you're within the same stuff that you used to buy. The cost just got that much higher.
Yeah. And again, like, for us, again, when we look at houses, like, I may walk in and look at this rehab and have a different plan than what you would do. Somebody else may come in and say, I'm going to take out the carpet, refinish floors, and paint, and then just put it back on the market. We're coming in and looking at, okay, where can I make this kitchen bigger? How can I knock out a wall if possible? Can I add in a bathroom? Can I, add in a bedroom? We've got a house over in Morrison Woods that's a ranch, 3-bed, 2-bath. How do we'll go downstairs and put in a true bedroom, bathroom, and make that a 4-bed, 3-bath, and take it from a $625, $650 house to like $725 because of that, right? And it doesn't cost us that difference, but that's what you're able to push it to. Sure. And so we're always trying to figure out, how do you push the envelope, and what can you maximize it to? Finishing the basement, adding in, more square footage, those kind of things is what we're looking for. And again, so what we then need to make an offer on that may be different than somebody else comes in and just says, I'm good with the way it looks. I'm just going to paint it, polish the floors, and maybe put some new light fixtures in and walk out the door. Now, what they make on it may be less, but they're only in it for way less too.
That's right.
So it's just a different model.
Different approach. All right. So looking back, like you kind of experienced like the whole like what do they call it? Like the hockey stick trajectory, right? I feel like you came over in 2010,
2011. Yeah.
2011. And then, you know, I think of your journey, building your team, CAD came on, adding some people, 16, I think we did it 3 years, right? 16 to 19, you were the team leader. And I think it's fascinating that as you stepped out and maybe spent only about 10 or 15%, give it 20% of your time on the team, your team still grew every single year. And I got to tell you, selfishly, from my journey, that 3 year, knowing that how well you've done for us as a team leader, but yet how well you've done with your team, that your team was not impacted by it at all, is one of the highlights of my journey, because I think it speaks to the leader that you are and what the true opportunity of this is. A lot of times people think it's a job, and it doesn't have to be a job. I think it's an opportunity like you did. Like you learn a ton through that role to kind of look at things from a much wider lens, and it reflected in your team on a yearly basis. You gave 3 years of massive growth for your organization and really strong growth for your own team. And when you went back to your team was stronger. The market center was stronger. It's by far the way that it should look like when it happened. So when you look at this and you think of the hockey stick, you know, trajectory, do you spend time like just reflecting on the journey? I mean, you came over doing about 3 or 4 million, 15, 20 deals. I don't know what this year looks like, but last year you were closing like high 200s, low 3, like 60,
we've been around like 230 for the last few years. We'll close 170 this year, so we're down a little bit. Our team has shrunk a little bit, but we're doing like 70 to 80 million in volume annually. Yeah, so that's where we've been.
It's a long way from the 3 to 4 we came in. So, it's been phenomenal. So I think of people a lot of times that, especially at towards the end of the calendar year, they always spend time reflecting and, hey, this is next year's the year. And I think like you did it. So what would you tell someone that is thinking about it? Like how do you get started? Where do you start?
Where do you start? Hire an admin. Yeah. Hire a really good one.
Yeah.
I think it's about who you surround yourself with, I think is the biggest takeaway from all of it. I think coming to KW and learning from you and Angela and the trainings and Bold and all of those things are what morphed me into the leader I became, you know, and learning all that stuff. And it's all about the people you're with, you know, and who you're around and who's pushing you and what they're doing. And then, you know, all the people that I've hired and brought on to my team and who I've gotten to work with on the team and being a part of that and how we work together, that's it. I mean, I think it's truly about who you're surrounding yourself with and that environment. You get the right people, you're going to, you know, things are going to work out, you know? I think sometimes we, as agents, are so busy and working on the deals that we bring somebody in, and whether they're the right fit or not, we don't even realize it or don't care because we just hire out of need. And I think sometimes it backfires and makes it harder and worse, and they struggle. So, I mean, I think really paying attention to who you surround yourself with is probably the biggest thing for me.
Yeah.
You know?
I think as an entrepreneur of your level, I think to reach the level that you're reaching, and I know you're not done, right? So God knows where it's going to be like 5 years from now. But I think one of the big trade that I see is like you need courage, like you need guts, like you need to be able to say, hey, you know, I know how collaborative you are, and I know at times when we worked, I'm like, dude, you got to make.
I remember that specific. I've actually repeated that before to people. Russo says you can't be collaborative for everything. Well, we're going to see about that. But there's definitely moments where I'm like, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Anyway.
It's all right. I don't forget. I mean, I know. Part of being coachable. I understand that.
So it takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of courage. So looking back, like, what are some points where you're like, you know, hey, I'm doing this, but I'm like, like I'm not, you know, I'm worried. I'm not sure. Or we're just going to have to power through this and make it work. Like what are some of those moments reflecting back that you had to kind of
as Kat points out to me, I'm like a 9.5, 9.8 optimist on the KPA scale. So I'm pretty much
12, but
I'm pretty much at the highest, pretty close to the top of the chart on optimism. So what that means is that I assume everything is just going to work itself out. Like it's going to be, I mean, everything I go into, we're good. There's nothing wrong with this decision. It's going to work itself out. Kat, which is why we work so well together, is like a 0.2 on the outgoing. So she's the other end, right? So she brings me back down and says, hey, here's what the reality is, And, but I think having that optimism or confidence or whatever that is what maybe make the decisions I made, right? And trusting in myself to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to leave my own independent company and come to Keller because I think what he's here is going to help me. I'm going to go ahead and roll the dice and hire this coach, even though I don't have the money. And I believe because you're telling me this is going to work, then okay, then it's going to work. Okay, I got to make that first hire. Okay, well, I'm not sure how I'm going to afford it, but I'll figure it out. And if it works, then they're going to give me more business is what you're telling me. So then I'll do it. And I guess I'm willing to be riskier than most in those situations because it wasn't like I had a massive bank account of reserves sitting there ready to go to pay somebody. I mean, I had enough to pay you for about a half hour and then that was it. And it was like, well, we're going to go get more business because that's supposed to work. If this is working, that's what's supposed to happen, right? That's what you told me. And I think it's trusting in what people are telling you. I think it's having the confidence and the courage and being optimistic. And at the end of the day, like, all of it falls on me. If I don't go out and perform, then nothing worked. It wasn't because of Catherine and she didn't do her job or Rachel or anybody else or my coach who said, it was me. I was that person that had to show up and go to work, get the appointments, do the lead gen, hire the people, coach the people, and then bring in others and work through them to do the same thing as a team leader on my team. All of it required me to show up, right? And that was the biggest common denominator of all of it. And as long as you're willing to bet on yourself and invest in yourself, then that's where you're going to go. If you're questioning that all the time and concerned about that, then there's your problem, right?
I think you said this best. Like I think the a lot of the people that I see will say, "I will bet on myself," or they'll say it until they actually have to put their chips in the middle. And then all of a sudden it feels and it looks different, right? And I think thinking and being part of the journey that you've been on and being on the sideline, I think that's the biggest thing. And I say this often, there's a point where you have to have some sort of blind faith. Like you have to trust that what you're doing is going to pan out, and you have to trust that the information you're being given is going to pan out. You have to, because like you said, like you hadn't done it. So you can't, like now it's easy. You look back, it's easy for you to stand and tell somebody, hey, this is it, right? Because you've lived it. But I think every time that something new gets in front of you, and this is one of the biggest hurdle I see with people, say, well, I have to see it, or I have to feel it, or I have to touch it. But I'm like, no, we have to build it. So then you go, and there's a blind faith. I feel like that's required in anybody's journey that I think maybe I call it blind faith, you call it optimism, whatever, but I think that's one of the things that separates you and makes you like who you are and where you are today is that you're willing to put the chips and say, hey, I'm going to do it, and I think that's a big step.
The other interesting piece that I've learned is you said, oh, it's easy, to talk about and share. It's easy to make that first hire because you're the one there, right? What I've learned is another layer of challenges that when you're working through other people, right? And then it's their job to hire that person. It's their job to hold that person accountable and work with them. And you're seeing it and you want to then just jump in and say, no, I'm going to take care of it. But then you step on that person's toes and now, what kind of relationship do you have with them? And it's having to really learn how to work through others. That becomes a whole other learning opportunity and challenge in itself and changes you again, because it's like, when you make that first couple hires and you're the one in the business doing the appointment, you're in charge, right? You're in control. You make those decisions. You move quick. You can make things happen. Once you start building it out, I mean, better than anybody, right? With the organization that you have, how many people you have to work through to get what you want to get done, right? And a lot of times as entrepreneurs and leaders, I want to get there quick. So I'm just going to do it myself. It'll be faster if I do it myself. Yes, in the short term, but in the long term, it won't. right? Because now what have you just done with that relationship that somebody else was in charge of? That's right. And you went around them. And so I think that is probably another huge learning opportunity over the years. That's like, okay, well, now I have to work through you. And you're like, gosh, we could just move faster, But that's part of the journey. It's part of the process.
Yeah. Right? I love when it's like, I was ready 3 months ago and I get a call and so I say, I think I got it. I'm like, yes.
That's it though, right?
But it is.
But that's the moment that you're like, all right, we got it. But you're like, we could have had that a long time ago.
Now we get to go until the next speed bump. And I think you could be the poster child for that. It's one of my favorite saying, right? Like if you want to go fast, you go alone. And if you want to go far, you go together. And I think you could be the poster child for that quote. I mean, there's very few people that exemplify that quote to the level that you do. I mean, not because of how far you went or you are, but because you've done it with a core group that's been with you almost since the beginning, or, that's been pieced up throughout the process and have stayed with you and have been there for so long. So I think that's awesome. I think we have to stop this at some point. I talked to you all day, but then
I don't think we want to listen all day.
I love you, brother. I'm